Welcome to Midlife Catalyst, a place where ordinary people share extraordinary stories. Today's guest has a wonderful story to share with you. I appreciate his vulnerability and willingness to speak candidly on his life experiences. True story, I have never met today's guest in person. This was our first face-to-face, and we've only recently come in contact with each other. He is a true example of the beauty and power of social media working for the good. I had liked one of his posts. He reached out to collaborate, and we just formed a friendship and found that we had a lot of same interests and experiences, regardless of our age or stage in life. While today's guest is not in midlife, he has certainly faced many difficult challenges and situations that have deeply impacted how he shows up in the world and how he approaches life and makes decisions that serve him in the best way possible. He has used negative experiences that could have destroyed him and turned them into good. Now he uses those experiences to spread the message of kindness, belonging, and value across the country. If you're a parent, a grandparent, an educator, or if you too are just struggling to find your place, be seen, valued, and heard, you're going to benefit from hearing from, as I call him, the doctor of kindness has to bring to you today. Thank you for listening. I am so glad you're here. You'll learn quickly I tend to say things I shouldn't. Dr. Christopher Culver is a proud product of Oklahoma education and has served educational communities for more than a decade as a classroom teacher, secondary principal, and most recently as a cabinet-level administrator. Dr. Culver is a product of a divorced family and split time between Tulsa and Wyandotte, Oklahoma, and Fayetteville, North Carolina. Currently, Dr. Culver serves as a consultant with expertise in kindness, culture, and understanding GenZ, GenA, and as an adjunct professor in the Oklahoma City metro area, teaching future teachers and leaders, because Lord knows we need more high quality of those in our system. He is highly sought after and well known for his high energy, passionate, engaging, and motivational professional development. Participants call him engaging, charismatic, dynamic, and enthusiastic. He has his pulse on today's generation. He is focused on spreading kindness, improving mindset, cultivating culture, and education about Gen Z, Gen A. Dr. Culver believes that if you cannot find the light, then be the light. I am so glad you are joining us today and bringing your light here because I need it. I seek it. And so I have to ask, is Wyandotte correct? Because there's a main street in Kansas City. One of the four is Wyandotte. And so I'm like, I remember David Payne using that term because that's how we know our small town city terminology in Oklahoma is from watching the weather and tornado updates, like places you don't know exist. Just tune into a tornado warning.
Exactly it. I laugh because you're probably the first person to get Wyandotte correct anytime I've said the name, because those people are like Wyandotte or Wyandotte, like they get it wrong. Small town in the northeast part of Oklahoma. It's a super one-stop sign. So super small town.
You graduated in Tulsa, correct? So
yeah. So divorced family, grew up, my dad's in North Carolina. My mom remarried when I was 6 and we moved to Tulsa. So during the week we were in Tulsa, and on the weekends I was on a farm. I was like a weekend rancher, which, listen, I was trying to fit in and I know I didn't. So I always show pictures during my presentations of me on the farm because people don't believe that I grew up on a farm. I always want to get picture evidence that I did the thing. And while that life is not for me, I have great admiration and gratitude for those that do any kind of farming or agricultural work because it's hard. It is incredibly hard work.
And it doesn't stop when there's snow or heat, whatever's happening, you still farm. I grew up in smaller town, Oklahoma, but even within the small town, my family lived out in the country. So I didn't have neighbors. I just went and played in the pasture. And people that I have met through the years do not believe that at all. And I'm like, just listen to me. It comes out. It comes out. But I think we're proof, regardless of the rhetoric, that Oklahoma schools do actually produce smart, dynamic, engaging people, regardless of what the rankings say. There are really highly successful people in Oklahoma.
Well, you're so kind to share that. I'm grateful to be a product of Oklahoma education. I wouldn't be here today without educators. They truly saved my life. And you're right. With all the negative rhetoric that's out there, there are some incredible people who are serving students and communities everywhere who are on fire. I mean, on fire for kids. And it's unfortunate that we have rhetoric that trumps that in an essence. And it's unfortunate that we don't get to showcase the positives that are happening across our state. Because I'll tell you, there are teachers, leaders, and community members who are stepping up to serve these communities of students like never before, and innovative strategies and ways they're doing it. That's one of the things I love about this new work that I've been exploring, is getting to connect with spaces that I've never been or I've ever got to been a part of, and just to see what they're doing for their community and for their kids and their teachers. It's remarkable. It's an honor to have been a product of Schools of Oklahoma, but now to give back and to serve in such a capacity.
Talk about that, because you were in a cabinet level position. And I did read your bio and I was like, oh, shit, I could have been his principal when he was in high school. So what prompted you to make this shift into the role that you're doing now, which speak a little bit about that, the Orange Sparrow organization and what you're doing with that?
So let me back up to 2019. I had just accepted an assistant principal position at a campus in Oklahoma City metro area, a large district, the largest one in the metro. I served on the south side as an assistant principal. I remember working with this principal. I remember for a long time, I carried a lot of negativity in my heart regarding this individual because they were mean. I mean, just mean. Staff members, mean to students. I couldn't fathom that this is how we were operating space. To be honest with you, because of this, and I had waved the white flag to central office administrators, to our executive directors, and all the things, and no one was listening. I lost hope. I lost faith. I lost everything. People in the systems. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Like this cannot be. And I remember at spring break that leader shared that we had a teacher problem because 50 teachers were leaving the campus. And I was trying to explain, like, I don't really think we have a teacher problem. I think we have a leadership culture problem. That individual, no, that's not it. That's not it. And I was like, okay, I'm being tested. Like, I don't know what this is. And so fast forward a couple months, I decided to launch into my doctorate journey and earn my ADD. And I researched school culture, motivation, and the impact on retention. And so what it came down to was relationships, trust, empowerment, autonomy, recognition, and communication. I share that because I had the opportunity. I don't know how it manifested for itself, but I'm grateful to return back to that same campus just a couple years later after an assistant superintendent had moved me. Eventually, I thought I was ready to go back and I could take it on. I don't know what happened. This individual was even meaner than before, and I only lasted a couple of months. And thank goodness, I was able to transition into some district level work in another district. I believe everything happens for a reason. Eventually, I would move on from that campus, and that individual would reach out and say to me, "Hey, I know what you researched. Tell me what it is I need to do." And I shared it's not a do thing. It's a leadership thing. It's about being visible, seen, heard, present, making sure everyone feels seen, heard, valued, and respected. And Amanda, when I transitioned to this district level role, I was on fire. I thought we were really doing some creative and really innovative things. And what I noticed is something happened, a pivotal moment happened, and there was some negative rhetoric about our district and some individuals that were in that space. And the culture shifted, and it was just as bad as that middle school where I served before. And I knew that internally I couldn't continue moving forward for myself. And I knew there really wasn't going to be a shift in the culture. And so did I have a plan? I didn't have a plan at all. I just walked away on June 30th and said, this is what's best for me, and I'm going to figure out the rest. I had done some speaking and some professional development work leading up to this exit, and I had given my supervisor a significant notice. So in July, I launched Orange Sparrow, and people always ask me like, hey, why did you choose Orange Sparrow? First, orange is my favorite color. I just love the color orange. About sports, I don't understand sports ball.
That's going to be your only downfall. We don't do orange around here.
So orange is my favorite color, but it also sparks intrinsic joy. It says that people who love the color orange bring out boldness and they take risks. And then I love the sparrow because it helps us find balance, harmony, and peace, but it also reminds us of integrity, empowerment, persistence, and wisdom. I've had a unique journey in the sense that I've progressed really quickly in the Oklahoma educational system. I am so grateful for those that have provided me those opportunities, those who believed in me and supported me and encouraged me. But at the same time, like I have had some challenges that I don't think that people know about. I haven't shared stories vulnerably about of being made fun of and picked on and being excluded for who I am and what I am. Right. And so I share my stories and my wisdom and my experiences vulnerably now to help other people understand that it really does matter that every single person fosters belonging in a respective space. My colleague and I were chatting on LinkedIn, and it's that shift has happened in the workforce as well. No longer are we loyal just because this
Okay.
giving me a paycheck. It matters that someone sees you, hears you, values you, and that there is a culture of belonging. If not, people are leaving at larger numbers than ever before. And so a lot of that was that internal shift for me. And so I'm excited now to travel the world, truly travel the world. And I can't believe I'm saying that 7 months into the gig, and I'm just so grateful. But to travel and share about today's learners, today's generation, today's workforce, how to foster that positive culture that we're looking for, not just in schools, but in nonprofits and businesses. And then also how to be kind, right? Treating people the way we want to be treated. And I vulnerably tell my story and help people connect to say, hey, we never know what someone's going through, but our words, our actions, our gestures are so important and they can change someone's day.
Everything you do exudes kindness and integrity. I mean, we can talk for hours about bad principles because I worked for some really frustrating situations of climate and culture, and how you can take a negative situation and either it can destroy you or it can light a fire in you to do better and always strive to improve.
And I'll be vulnerable. Like for a long time, would speak would feel negative emotions related to that experience. Right? It was like this, I lost, like I said, I lost faith in people. I didn't understand why people weren't. But what I realized as I reflect back is that individual may have not have been good with relationships. They may not have been good with that culture, but I learned logistics and operations from them that was beneficial as I moved forward. Right. And so that was a reframing of the mind that I probably only reshaped a year ago. And I left years ago, but it just was how hard and so troubling and how challenging that situation was.
And I say this, every district I've worked for, I have learned something and improved. Like you said, be it operations, relationships, technology, each individual has their unique kind of niche and what they're good at. I have no regret from any situation. I've taken it and learned when I could have a ton of hostility and animosity. Part of this does go back to one of my key things, which is core values. And you cannot change that in someone when the person reached out to you and was like, what do I do? Well, you can't change the fundamental of who you are internally. How do you help people try to move forward? Really take a step out and see this isn't a do, this is a value. It's an operating system that you need to get a better handle on.
I think the best thing is to be visible and to walk the walk. I think a lot of times when I was supporting campus leaders or supporting other leaders in various roles, and there would be conflict or a culture shift, it would be just understanding, hey, help me understand what your intent was here, because this is how it came off or how it was delivered, right? Because I think everyone at the core has really good intentions. I don't think anyone maliciously goes out and seeks this.
Right. The majority, yes.
Right, the majority. And so when we see that and we recognize the intent and we help them reframe the situation, because some people that's not their gift. We all have our own gift and that's not their gift. And so it's something that can be cultivated and can be developed over time. Like you said, as a core value to understand that we have to treat people the way we want to be treated, and the way you deliver this came off harshly or this came off this way or whatever it may be. And I think the other piece is listen. When we're leading respective spaces or we're leading teams or camp, whatever it may be, leadership, period. You have to listen to people and then take feedback, but not be defensive and get emotional and be in high distress, but use as a way to move forward and see any of the negativity or what I call, just growth feedback as a way to get better. I do it at the collegiate level every semester. Like, hey, what worked? What was a total train wreck? And what should I consider moving forward? And I'll be honest, I taught a brand new class this semester, got some good feedback. I would say good because it was honest and raw. Now I know how to shift and move forward for next semester. They weren't being hateful, right? It's the same thing. It's the same approach as we're working, as you shared. It's not a compliance based measure. And I do share a story about when I went up to this individual one time to ask them a question. They were staying in the hallway and they put their hand in my face before I answered a question. And I had to step back because I wasn't in the space I was today. And I was like, man, I'm going to wreck myself right here. Like this is not it. And walked away to process what had happened. I heard that individual say, I had just built a relationship with and put a checkbox on the clipboard. And I was like, we got it all wrong. Like, it is not compliance based. It's like you said, the core value, it can be developed, but it takes some intentionality.
You talk a lot about generational gap. One thing I think I experienced, now I am a true Gen Xer all the way through. I am grunge, I am alternative, I am the definition of Gen X. However, I also love to grow and love to learn and love to do better. And so I think you get that from reaching out and truly listening to other generations. When I had a conflict with an administrator and went to central office, the response was, I was in the military and you get in line like a good soldier and follow along. That response had so much to do with the generational approach to leadership and work at the time. What kind of conversations do you have with leaders on seeing other generations, seeing other aspects, and considering other aspects of leadership?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest pieces we have to remember too, Amanda, is generations now are seen as a new form of diversity, right? Because as you shared, Gen X was very much, and even baby boomers, very much of like, we're loyal to the company. We go to work and do our job. We go home and deal with our problems, right? We don't bring our problems to the door. And you and I both know, as leaving education spaces just a couple months ago, people are bringing them whole selves to work now. And so that's not unique for adults. That's students too. We're asking them to show up as their whole selves, which has brought a robust problem or situation of challenges to schools of providing those wraparound services all the way, right? I think about too situationally and generationally how we've shifted from a play-based childhood. In my childhood, we were outside playing till the lights came on. We were playing with teams. We were playing with our neighbors, playing with classmates, whatever it may be. We were learning executive functioning, problem solving, teamwork, conflict resolution, all of those skills. Jonathan Haidt in his book, Anxious Generation, shares that we've pivoted to a phone-based childhood and where we have now lost those skills. And now kids don't have that adaptability to learn executive functioning in that aspect. Because think about it, if you're the mom or dad who sends a kid outside, well, the kid's outside, but they're by themselves. Nobody else is out there. We're begging children to go outside. I was reading a book over the holiday and got some really interesting statistics that I'm putting out now that is just mind blowing. Kids today speak to their adolescent friends 55 hours a week, but only speak to adult for 16 hours a week. And of that 55 hours, more than 95% of it is done digitally. So think about, we shouldn't be shocked when generational Z and A don't know how to interact with adults of different generations. They're doing it digitally, right? But then think about in the 1990s, the TV was the screen. Most people are on a device or a screen for 3 hours. Today, it's 6 to 8 hours a day. We've shifted to many more hours a day. One of the things that stands out to me the most is loneliness. Our kids today say 1 in 10 kids say they don't have friends. 50% of adolescents share they're lonely. And loneliness isn't about just actually being lonely. It's about being socially disconnected. But a statistic that I read that was alarming is this loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day. And think about what that does to our health levels, right? And what that does if kids show up in respective spaces, or Gen Z or Gen A teachers are showing up. And so that we have a shift of people wanting to know their value, seen, heard, and respected. They're connected to a vision or a mission. They're connected to the space. They have a leader who believes in them. There's a statistic, I'm going to pull it up. It says like 60% of today's learners or Gen Z, Gen A, even not, I don't want to say learners because we have people in the workforce that identify as this generation as well. They want to have some kind of connection with their supervisor every day. And if they don't have a check-in, they feel like it's weird. And so I think about our students who may go days, right? They're that bubble kid who may not have a connection to someone there. That's the power that we have to really be intentional about connecting our teachers to someone, our students to someone. And more than that, 90% of today's kids say they prefer human interaction, but more so than a screen. They just don't know how to do it. And so I'm really on a charge to help teachers and educators and leaders, nonprofits, businesses, whatever it may be, create these spaces where we're rooted in connection through kindness. Because, man, kids are mean on social media today. We've got burner accounts, fake accounts. Bullying is up. I mean, there's statistics out there that say there's a shift from in-person bullying to cyberbullying. But the most alarming statistic that I read in 2024 is suicide rates are down for 12 to 15, but they're up for ages 8 to 11. We have to create the areas where people feel I'm connected. I have someone who's there. Kids don't have friends. It's so important. So I'm on this mission through this work to help people understand what's happened because of technology, what's happened because of social media, how we got here, how it's impacted today's students or today's workforce or today's generation, and then what can we do about it in our respective seats. And there's so much that we can do. It's just small shifts with intentional focus to ensure that we're reaching.
I know you speak a lot to educators, but I also have a lot of parents that are concerned where they're like, what can we do? How can we help support our kids and support our teachers? Again, I speak a lot about the negative rhetoric that's out there because that's what's pushed in our face. But 90% of the people I encounter want to do the right thing. They're not given the microphones. I'm speaking to those people of what can they do to help support their kids to foster those connections and relationships.
Limit screen time. I think we have to have clear boundaries around devices, making sure they're a thought partner in that process, right? I'm helping them understand why you're making the decisions that you're making. Again, it's not about you. It's about you continuing to make decisions that are best for them, and they understand that. They may not understand them in the immediate. I remember back to when my mom and dad or stepdad would make decisions when I was a teenager or a young adult, right? I was like, this is crap. Like, I don't agree with this, right? But then later in life, I look back and I'm like, wow, I'm grateful that my parents did X, Y, and Z. And we know that to be true for all of us. And so when we set boundaries or we have boundaries for devices where we're allowing that child's voice and choice, get kids outside and playing. There's research around just going outside and walking for 20 minutes, just walking can relieve anxiety and headaches. And anxiety is the number one thing today's kids are facing. I led a parent workshop last week in a local town here in Oklahoma. And I was having a conversation with a mom and I was like, get up in their business, right? You're paying for that cell phone. You're using that cell phone. Get in there, because oftentimes on the front, it's a facade that they have apps that are covering other things that they're doing that maybe they're not be doing, right? Or they have burner accounts or fake accounts. And I say that because we may not see the bullying or the conflict that's happening because it's not happening face to face. It's happening on this device. And so parents have got to be in the know to know what's going on, to have those conversations, and then support teachers, right? When we do that, we're putting the kids to bed early. We're making sure devices and blue lights are out of their room. We're giving them time to unwind 30 minutes to an hour before bed, right? Like all of these intentional things. I think this is the hardest part when I'm talking to educators or anyone, is I recognize so many families are doing all they can to provide and survive, right? And so to say to a parent to do one more thing, I feel hard. That's hard to say. And so we do the best that we can. I recognize in some situations, older siblings are raising younger siblings, or some children are just taking care of themselves. I get it. Do what we can within the means that we have, but try to be intentional when we are with our children or we are with our family. Put devices away. When you're talking to your child, please give them your undivided attention. Don't be looking down on your device or doing something different. And my dear friend Katie Kinder shared this idea last week, and I loved it. She talks about even at her own dinner table, they have sentence stems or conversation starters that they can with their kids. And I think that's transformational. Like, that is the kind of things we have to do to be intentional.
I love the sentence starters because a kid is not just going to respond and tell you, how was your day? I don't even think adults are going to respond. Fine and move on. Fine, move on, right? You've got to ask those more broad questions and listen for those little glimmers in there, little threads. Let me follow this of say more, open-ended, talk about that research project that you're doing. Really have those intentional open-ended conversations and follow the dialogue.
I had a student at the university not so long ago share that cell phone had damaged her relationship with her mom. Her mom is addicted to her cell phone. And I unique to that one student and that one parent, right? Like, I'm trying to be in a vulnerable state. I'm trying to be more intentional as I'm talking to people or engaging with people, that I'm not doing things on my phone. And I'll tell you, shifting out of a central office role where you are responsible for listening and then you're communicating here. I also was over communications, right? So that was another added layer, which I'm grateful for all of that experience. But that's been a shift for me in this new work to be, no, okay, I'm gonna be in the present here. I don't have to be distracted, because actually there's no research that says we can multitask. It says we're just distracted at that level. And so what's interesting is today's kids say they can multitask on 5 screens. What that means is they're just 5 times more distracted, right? And so Two, I'm trying to be intentional to not be distracted and having conversations or engaging. And so if we can model that for our young folks or this generation, then I think there's some intentionality there that they can see what we're doing, and then maybe they'll apply it to their own respective space.
I have been really intentional with putting on my work focus, and it's really pissed some friends off because they're like, you're not doing anything. You're just like writing or podcasting. I'm like, I need my effort. They're like, well, we can see you're online. I'm online working. I'm not online scrolling. But people feel like they should have that automatic reply and immediate feedback. We need to learn some patience and delayed gratification. The shift from waking up at 5 a.m. immediately going to your cell phone, what crisis are we dealing with today? It really never shut off.
Ever.
I don't think anybody in America understands what our teachers, what our administrators are dealing with constantly. I have not looked at the latest, research on burnout. And I don't even know if anyone's gotten to that level because you can't keep a grasp on it. But between politicizing public education and the constant need for access, and like you said, the suicide rates for 8 to 11-year-olds, I can tell you the drug usage for that age, that all of the things have trickled down. Our kids have become adults at 10 years old. They really have. It's alarming, but it puts so much pressure on educators to help. Like you said, everyone has good intentions. Everyone wants to help. And when it's just this constant sense of, I'm not doing enough. And I know that from so many teachers who constantly feel I'm not doing enough for my kids. I've got to do more. And I worry so much about the burnout rate.
Yeah, and a lot of that stems from, I believe, my perspective, my experience, from really high people putting pressure on outcomes. I get it. I have sat in that seat. I know that we're measured by outcomes. I know this report card is what's dictated in the narrative that's provided around that school or that district. What's sad and what I always say is that's one test on one day that measures that child on that day, right? It's unfortunate that that's how we're measured. Nevertheless, that's the reality in which we're in. But we know that active learning and getting kids engaged at high levels where they're connecting will increase outcomes in little as 2 months, but will stay with them for years to come. What I'm seeing is we're focused on a one-size-fits-all model of everyone's going to do this on the same. And I get it, like that may in theory work. But when I think about the diverse student population and the robust ethnic backgrounds and languages, right? There's so many languages in our state that doesn't work. And so when we do allow kids to do the heavy lifting and the teacher's the facilitator of learning, right? Like asking questions and getting kids up moving around and engaging and going out, all these things, that's when they're going to learn. That's when they're going to do that. But you're right. Teachers don't have, in some spaces, that freedom to do those things. And so they're beating themselves up to say, man, I didn't get through the 5 worksheets today, or crap, I didn't get through the 10 problems that we were supposed to. I'm not doing enough. And the reality is a lot of teachers are doing more than enough, right? They're doing all
they are.
And I will always say, and I start off all of my talks, workshops, whatever it may be, is the power of gratitude. I'm grateful for every educator who answers the call to serve, lead, teach, whatever it may be, because without them, this world would not go round. And we need educators to continue to make this world go round. And so I share it from this space as well. Thank you to every educator who answers the call to serve and to lead, because as you shared, there's a negative rhetoric. And so those of us who have the space to amplify voices from the positive lens will continue to do so, because there's great work happening nationwide.
We both ended, I won't say a career, because I still very much want to stay in the educational space. And I do consider myself an educator and a teacher, and whatever I do, I go from that lens of educating people. Have you experienced any grief, any sadness, any loss around leaving?
I'll be real. I did, right? Like I remember driving away in the parking lot that day bawling. It's like, this is it, right? And I didn't know what this it was, but this was the end. July and August, I was really okay. I dove in a lot into the new work. I think it's that honeymoon phase of what's going on. And I will say probably in November was that seeking of, should I go back? Should I look at other spaces, right? Or like, man, I really miss it. And I don't know that I miss the like you said, from sun up to sundown, the stress, the drama, the chaos, all of that piece. But I miss the people, I miss the work, I miss the service, I miss the impact. I'd be lying if I said I don't do that. So I'm with you in the sense of I'm still rooted in education. I still love that I serve at the university level to work with the new educators and new leaders. Yeah, I do miss it. And what's interesting is I too will never say that I'm not an educator, because as I run into people from other spaces, they're like, hey, we miss you. Would you ever come back? And I said, I have learned in my life to never say never. So what I'll say is not right now, but if the opportunity ever presents itself, then maybe. Never say never, because life just keeps going. But definitely grief, sadness, the happiness, the joy, all in between. And I think that's the part that people don't always see. They see a lot of the other side or create stories about what that experience would be. But you navigate every emotion, I'm sure, as you have, as well as you've shifted from one to the next.
I have gone on a deep dive into cults lately. I'm an Enneagram 5. I am the type that I don't just skim the surface of something. I go all the way in and research it until I exhaust myself. The school family is undeniably an amazing cult in my mind. When you think about the community, the connection, edu-speak, how we have terminology that only we understand, even down to the thermos we carry. I remember, see again, dating myself, but when we used to take our papers home to grade, and one teacher got a rolling cart, so then everyone got this little rolling basket to take home. I mean, it truly is like a cult, but it's a great one in that I have friends and some of the best connections lasting lifetime through that community. I feel like you're building a cult of kindness, and that is what we need in our communities. So where does that come from?
Well, if I can back up, I grew up in a divorced family, right? So that in itself was normal to me. But as I began to become an educator and research human development, you don't realize what impact that has on you. Now, my mom and my dad, my stepmom, God rest her soul, and my stepdad, they did the absolute best they could, right? They did what they did with what they could at that time. None of that is held against them. But I grew up bouncing between 3 elementary schools when I was going to school. So there's a lot of challenges, right? I share that because as humans, we're naturally wired to want to belong. We want to know that we fit in, that we have a belonging in that space. And clearly, I didn't belong. I also share that in 3rd grade, I brought my multiplication fact cards in a briefcase, right? And in 5th grade, I planted a tree and student tie. So like I myself wasn't taking social cues to fit in either, right? I'm doing things that are weird and stand out. In middle school, I was picked on, I was bullied, I was shamed, like all these things, right? So then high school continued. And unfortunately, it didn't stop there. There was some language at home that was used as well. My stepdad would say things like, hey, you're not going to amount to anything. You're a failure and all those things. And I think that stems from his own things. And over the years, we've worked, and I get it, right? We say things when hurt people, all that. I get all those things. But when you hear that at school and you hear that at home, you internalize that at a high level. Yeah, it put me on watch of wanting to take my own life. And so it was really teachers who saw value in me, who were the dealers of hope and belief, who allowed me to know that I added value to the space and encouraged me to keep going. And so I share that I will never treat someone the way that I was treated, intentional to ensure that even someone who's excluded, I do try to include as much as I can. In addition, when I was starting teaching, right, I was made fun of being too nice to kids. And when I started being a leader, I was too nice to teachers, and I was too nice, too nice, too nice. So what I realized is that's how people want to be treated. And so I've always been on this mission of the way I want to be treated, to share kindness and not to treat people the other way, right? I don't remember what year it was, sophomore, junior year in college. My grandmother had passed away. And I remember the night of class, we had a paper and I took my paper to class, and this professor said, what is this? And I said, well, this is my paper. My grandmother's passed away. And because previously she had said, if you don't turn this paper in, you won't get credit. So here I am driving to campus, bawling, like, here's my paper. And she looked at me and she goes, you're not going to stay for class. And I said, no, my grandmother's passed away. She's like, okay, you'll lose an absence. And I stood there floored. And as I walked away, I remember saying out loud in the parking lot, I was like, I don't know what this ever means, but if I'm ever given the opportunity to do this to somebody else, I will never do this to someone. And I share that because last semester lifed for some of my students, right? We had a mom who lost her son, real life things that are happening for people. And I was like, that's it. We're pausing where you are. Let's have grace and compassion. And so I I would say that I've been dealt some cards or whatever, but I would say that I've had a really great life that's taught me a lot of experiences and opportunity that I've learned from. Probably wouldn't have been in that same mindset a couple of years ago. And so I'm grateful for even that growth. But because of that, I really am on a mission to create kind spaces because as you shared, there's a lot of negative rhetoric out there. And I believe if we can't find the light to be the light, share the joy, share the kindness. I'm honored that you call it a kindness cult. I'll take it. I'll be Dr. Kind.
Yeah, right.
This cult forward. That's where it stems. It's been my own experiences of being shut out, shunned, picked on, bullied, people talking behind my back, backstabbing, name calling, whatever it may be, right? People don't realize how hurtful it is. I may have the ability to channel it and own it and walk with it, but there are days behind the closed doors that people don't see that I'm human too. I am intentional to ensure that when I show up, I want to make sure that I'm kind to people and everything that I do is rooted in kindness. I'm not saying I'm perfect by any means. Please don't take it that way. We're all humans and life is messy, but I do try to set intention out.
Your story about the paper and staying in class spurned this very vivid memory. It will never leave me. I was sitting in a freaking weekly department meeting covering the same damn thing we had been covering and talking about over and over and over and over again. We can segue into Pat Lincolnian death by meeting, but we'll save that topic for another day. I'm like, I just need to cover my topic and then I need to leave because my mom's dying today. Hospice people know what they're doing. And when they say today's the day, I'm like, let me cover my topic so you all can proceed with work the next 2 weeks and I can go be with my mom. And Chris, they kept talking and I just got up and left.
Good for you.
I really don't think it will ever leave me. But one person came in and put $100 down and said, use this for gas. Because, by the way, she was 3 hours away and I was driving back and forth still doing the damn job. One person. And that person I still talk to regularly, but that one person saw me. And all it takes is one person to remember the good in an experience where 15 other people had no grasp of life.
Think of that show, What Would You Do? And there's a kid version now, right? What would kids do? And it's like you said, so often we observe things or 15 people will do nothing, but it really is the power of that one person, which is why I talk about being 1% better today than yesterday. And it's not a grandiose thing.
1% better.
You're not going to be the kindness charger for the world, right? But maybe you can give someone a compliment that didn't happen. Maybe you can smile to someone who didn't see smile, or maybe you can hold the door for someone. Maybe someone drops something, pick it up. It's those small things that will set intentionality for yourself because kindness is good for the receiver and the doer. But the research says that when someone is kind to you, you're 75% more likely to be kind to somebody else. And kindness fosters belonging at 90%. Well, since we're all naturally wired to want to belong, why not just be kind so we can all fit in and feel like we matter, right? I hate that happened to you. Thank you for sharing that, but I'm really sorry.
That's why I talk very openly about my experience with death, because I don't think it's talked about enough of the impact it has on people. And as we get older, I'm sure if people are listening, they're like, well, you're still a hard ass. So don't get me wrong. Like, I very much adhere to here's the standard and here's what we're going to do. It goes to that Brene Brown, clear is kind.
Yeah.
You can be kind and you can be nice. It doesn't mean there aren't rules, procedures, and policies, and we're going to communicate those and we're going to follow them. Here's the standard. And I'm being kind by fully putting it out there and telling you, but here's what we're going to do. If you're not on board, get off the bus.
Right. Just like he says in the interview, either get on the bus or get off the bus. Like my vision, here's where we're at it. But I think we still have to have accountability and expectations. When we're kind, we don't have to the window. It's just like you said, clear is kind. People want transparent, honest, and clear communication. And so I'm stunned, shocked, and disbelief at how many leaders don't communicate and then are shocked that people don't know what's going on. I'm like, well, it starts at the top. You're not telling what's going on. Where's your communication? I mean, you have to over-communicate and be thinking ahead so you can be before it falls apart, right? It takes organization, and some people have it. Some people don't. It's a learned skill. But like you said, clear process, expectations, all of that matters.
It's the same for parents. You set expectations, but be clear about it and say the why. Yeah, your kid still may be pissed off at you, but in the long run, it's going to be better than not setting it and being wishy-washy or
I'm working with students who they are all teacher interns. They're going to the field to start their field experiences of observation, and they're taking human development. Semester, I did chapter quizzes, and I was like, I don't feel like I'm getting student voice here. So this semester, I changed it, and we talked about like what are ways in which I can measure it. And so they have a choice board now. They can demonstrate their chapter understanding through TikTok, through a blog, through a video, through a cast, through an infographic. Some student emailed me and said she wanted to know if she could write her own assessment and tell me why there were questions right or wrong. I said, I don't care. That's great, right? They're going to own the learning that way, but they also have autonomy and voice and choice, which are pivotal characteristics that today's learners need. And so sometimes I think we get overwhelmed by this changing generation, this changing technology, this changing world, which I get. We're moving quickly. I mean, it's shifting fast. But
yeah.
we take small actions like that and really transform the learning space where we're the facilitator of learning, but the kids are doing the heavy lifting, but they have choice, right?
Yes.
It's those things that we can do in classrooms that really go a long way too.
I was a special education teacher and I had to give choice because some of my students couldn't communicate or articulate or write. So it just blew me away. As they say, the higher you go and you see the bigger problems. Why are teachers opposing to giving students choice in how they're demonstrating the learning? It's going to make your life so much easier. They're
Right.
going to go so much deeper into the concept and the topic. This is not my storytelling hour, but we tend to shy away from topics. And this, again, will date me, but I had a student. They were obsessed with marijuana, right? 20 years ago, it wasn't legal. It wasn't on every freaking corner. It was, okay, then go tell me why we should legalize marijuana. That kid was ahead of their flipping time. Really dug into how checks and balances and laws work because the topic was of interest to them. It's all they talked about. Well, let's do something with that then. Parents, don't shy away when your kid's talking about it. Let's dive in to the meaning behind it. I think people shy away from topics that
you're
really
absolutely
could open up a world of learning.
You're absolutely correct. I was watching this video about this project-based school, I believe in North Dakota, and this young student's on there talking about he's a senior in high school and he didn't like traditional learning, but he loved welding. And immediately I thought of my stepbrother,
Yes.
who didn't do the sit and get, but welding and fixing things, and I was going to come appliances, but like farm equipment, like he loved all that stuff. Really good at it. Like things I couldn't understand, he was really good at it. But this kid shares that through this school adapting him to be a welder, like he created a business plan for math and he wrote out what his objectives were going to be and his goals for English, right? And all these things. And he was able to go and now earn a welder's certificate and licensure and graduate and do this because the school adopted to that model. Like you said, they dove into what was passion, and which is why you think about passion projects for Google. Like it's a huge thing, like because it works. And that's what we should do in schools too. But it's hard in certain spaces with funding.
It is. There's all the red tape and logistics. How do you recharge? Because as you talked about, people aren't always kind and have not said nice things about you, which one of my core values is loyalty. So I'm like, just tell me who they are and I'll go kick their ass. But how do you recharge?
Yeah, intentionally.
And continue to show up.
I appreciate that. It's been a challenge. I'll tell you, I was really bad at doing this when I worked for systems, right? Because you feel like you have to give. And when you feel like you give to yourself, you're like, oh, I should be giving to somebody else. That's been a mindset shift for me. I am intentional to journal each day for gratitude and to find moments of just 3 things that I'm grateful for. Another challenge that I've been on this year is I'm reading the book called Lit. And it talks about how we should sometimes drive our cars with no podcasts or no music on and just listen to our mind and intentionally rewire it. And so I'll tell you what, that's the hardest dang thing to do. I am struggling, but I'm doing it. I'm driving in my car and doing those things as well to be intentional. Walking. We live by the lake, so that's easy to do, which I'm grateful. But just any of those things that I can do. And then also just making sure that when I am connecting with family and friends, I'm intentional, setting boundaries and doing things that bring me joy and find joy. And then just knowing And this has been a mindset shift for me, but just knowing that everything in life is happening for a reason, and that whether it brings hardship or change or whatever it may be, it's all meant for a reason. And I have to see it that way and learn from it, because each experience is teaching me, should I choose to view it that way? Even in my gratitude journaling, or my journaling of every day that could lead to free writing, right? I do talk about challenges to myself, about maybe what I've navigated, or maybe I made aha connections that I can go back to and say, oh my gosh, a couple days ago I was writing about this, but today I see this. And so that helps me recharge and refuel and reconnect. But it's just quieting my mind and taking time to be for myself, and just as simple as 15 to 30 minutes.
I'm all about routine and my morning routine, and it does include journaling and my gratitudes. Do you have that structure, or is it when you find?
Yeah, it used to not be a structure. It used to be when I found the time. But I will tell you, since the start of 2025, I've been really intentional to wake up at 4:30 or 5, have coffee, open my mind. Like, just because I feel like you can get so much done. The day is warmer in the afternoon. So if I get all my work done when it's cold, then I feel like I can get outside or go for a walk or do something, right? I think that's the biggest thing that I'm about not working, is having this freedom of, okay, it's 2 p.m. I'm not serving a campus. I'm not teaching. I can go outside. I'm going to walk around for a little bit, right? So yeah,
Yes.
intentionality and now journaling, gratitude in the morning. But I also found that it really just starts my day on the right foot. I really try to do it right in the morning. Like you said, that routine is fatal.
You talked about books. You're reading lit. What else are you reading right now?
I'm also reading Atomic Habits. And then I just got this the other day in the mail. I thought it was a short read, but it's a science and psychology of kindness. But clearly it's not a short read. This will be a fun dive into it. But what I really am trying to do, and what I'm not only reading just for my own self, but a lot of this is relevant to today's world. And so trying to connect, to understand why this is so foundational. And there's so much science out there. And so I'm probably a nerd in the sense I probably should read fiction. I do sometimes, but I love this nonfiction research.
Talk your pages, and I'm like, okay, what's Chris reading? Okay, I've read that. I haven't read that.
Well,
We kind of talked about this off screen of, I've got to have the books. I've got to feel them. I've got to mark them up. Are you the same?
same way. Like, I've tried doing online. I've tried reading articles here. I can't. I have to print them, highlight them, notate. Like, what is it going to, like, yes, I'm the same way. When I was teaching, the kids, they would joke, my gosh, Mr. Culver, more handouts. I'm like, I am using my copies. We're getting all the paper here.
Yes, absolutely. Do you know your working genius types, your personality types, any of those things?
I do. I'm galvanizing and invention. The third one is enabling. Okay. Yep. I had to think for a second.
I definitely see galvanizing and invention. I'm discernment and invention.
Okay.
I need you in my life to prompt me through. I talk about this a lot of not just understanding yourself. That's how you understand a partner, work situation, your colleagues, to know and make meaning of the world.
My former supervisor led the entire team through this. What's interesting is I was the only inventor on the team. And so that was a different shift too. But it really helped us understand how each other operates, like you shared, how we all fit in with one another at the onset of trust. And so I'm always grateful that my previous leader led us through that work, because it helped me understand who I was and why I am the way I am.
And it is a form of diversity as well, in that you need to diversify your team. You don't need a team full of inventors, because otherwise you're not going to get to completion of a task. I think we shy away from those talks of, we don't all need to have the same skill set, but we need to be aware and surround ourselves.
100%. And it's okay if we don't all agree, right? Task conflict is okay. What it can't happen is if it turns into personal conflict. I often see times where we create friendships in spaces, and so then all of this goes null and void. I agree with you. We have to be reflective and mindful of our team, of what we've created here, and ensure that friendships or those relationships don't over the needs of the organization forward, because it will impact the culture negatively.
Anything else you want to share in regards to Orange Sparrow?
Yeah, kindness assemblies, workshops, all the things to try to reach all aspects of the world. I'm just grateful to get to spread the message throughout, and just to help schools and spaces that are allowing it. If I can help with anything, feel free to reach out. I have resources that are free. More than happy to share, do anything that I can share research. I want to help people. That's really what I'm rooted in doing.
Excellent. I will link orangesparrow.org. I got a ton of resources from your newsletter around the holiday season and kindness. I was very intentional with the opening the door for people and saying good morning to the barista and I think it shocked him a little. He was like, "Oh, you're actually talking to me today." But it was because I had read your tips.
Oh,
Anyone can
thank you.
apply that. We need it in this world.
If you haven't
You're
subscribed,
doing great work.
it goes out on Tuesday. And I appreciate that. And I'm so grateful to know that it resonated with you and you were able to apply it. And I appreciate you sharing that. That means a lot to me. So thank you so much.
You can be found across all social media at Dr. Chris Culver. Just follow the handle and Orange Sparrow. Thank you. I do hope you come back on and dive deeper into what you're learning through kindness.
I would love it. Thank you so much for having me. I'm grateful to have been here.
As I reflect on this show, Chris certainly shows up in my gratitude list for this week. So many of the points he made left me reflecting in my journal, and a few prompts I have are: how are you making sure everyone you encounter feels seen, heard, valued, and respected? That barista I talked about, a few weeks later, we're now on a first name basis, and I don't go to that shop every day. So you can be kind even in hard times. It's what people are craving. It's what people are seeking, and it's what we need in this world right now. So that is my challenge to you. Be kind, open the door, and say hello to people. It's a personal challenge that I face every day. When we get busy, when we get distracted, it's hard to do, but it's the easiest thing that we can do to be human beings in this world. I also have to ask, if you yourself do not feel seen, heard, valued in your job, in your relationship, in a friendship, what do you need? What boundaries do you need to put in place? What changes need to be made? Where do you need to find a different community so that you yourself feel that validation? You have to be your own advocate and take charge of ensuring you encircle yourself with the right people. I'll be honest, I made a few assumptions about Chris. As I stated in the opening, I haven't known him for very long. And when you see him on social media, he is truly a ray of light. But he's also lived the life, has the experiences, and done the research. So my assumptions were he is naturally this positive person who springs out of bed every morning singing, loving life, and ready to take on the world, and that he hadn't had anything bad happen to him. When you talk to him, that absolutely is not the case. That is why I strive so hard to bring people's stories, to ask people better questions, to truly get to know someone and understand the place they are coming from. That is how I form meaningful connection. Not what you see on social media, but actually sitting down and talking to people. One of the things that he said that resonated so deeply with me was he's been dealt some hard cards. One of my favorite quotes from Cheryl Strayed is, "You are not entitled to the cards you think you should have been dealt. You are entitled to play the hell out of the cards you've been given." I have taken that as my motto, not just for this year, but for life. So much so that I got the Ace of Spades on my charm necklace to remind me to bet on myself and to play the hell out of the cards that I am holding. And that's what I'm going to do. What cards do you need to play? And when do you walk away? There were so many valuable resources that Chris mentioned today. All of those reading lists, statistics, resources will be linked on midlifecatalyst.net. You can find them on my Substack page at amandayance.substack.com. Let's get out and promote kindness in the world. As Chris says, if you can't find the light, be the light. And as I say, write your own narrative and be the catalyst for change at any age or stage of your life. I'm Amanda Yance. Thank you for joining the Midlife Catalyst.